Welcome to The Real Stories, where we delve into the dark and twisted tales of real crimes that shock communities and leave indelible marks. Today's episode uncovers how a mother discovers her 14-year-old son's horrifying secret, leading to a tragic murder. Amanda Harrison, a 40-year-old tech company executive, her husband Mike, a 42-year-old software engineer, and their son Zach, a 14-year-old boy, were known in their community for their active involvement in local events and Zach's academic achievements. Amanda, with her warm smile and infectious laughter, was always the first to volunteer for school events or neighborhood gatherings. Her colleagues at a prominent Austin tech company admired her dedication and creativity. Mike, more reserved but equally kind, spent his free time coaching Zach's little league team and tinkering with gadgets in their garage. Zach, a boy with bright eyes and a mop of chestnut hair, was known for his sharp mind and passion for science. On the surface, the Harrisons seemed like the perfect family. Their colonial-style home on Southeast 26th Street, with its pristine white facade and red door, often caught the attention of passers-by. Neighbors frequently saw the family taking evening walks together, with Zach enthusiastically discussing his latest school project while his parents listened attentively. However, beneath this veneer of suburban bliss, darkness was growing, which would soon shatter the peaceful facade of Austin and leave the community in shock and disbelief. The morning of June 15, 2023, began like any other for Amanda. She woke up at 6:30 a.m., prepared breakfast for the family, and saw Mike off to work. Zach, usually eager to start his day, was unusually sluggish getting ready for school. Amanda noticed dark circles under his eyes and a slight tremor in his hands as he picked at his oatmeal. Concerned, she asked if he was feeling okay, to which Zach mumbled an almost inaudible "I'm fine," shuffling toward his backpack. When Zach left for school, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Her maternal instinct, honed over years of caring for her only child, was on high alert. She decided to work from home that day, telling herself it was to catch up on some reports. But deep down, she knew it was her concern for Zach that kept her home. Throughout the morning, Amanda was distracted, her thoughts constantly returning to Zach's unusual behavior. She recalled how he had become more withdrawn over the past few months, spending more time alone in his room and less time with friends. Initially, she and Mike attributed this to typical teenage moodiness, but now she wondered if there was something more serious. Unable to focus on work, Amanda decided to tidy up Zach's room, hoping that the familiar act of maternal care would ease her growing anxiety. As she straightened his desk and picked up scattered clothes, her gaze fell on Zach's phone, carelessly left open on his bed. An inner voice urged her to respect her son's privacy, but her concern overrode her hesitation. With trembling fingers, Amanda opened the phone and began to explore its contents. At first, everything seemed normal. School assignments, favorite games, and social media accounts typical for a boy his age. But as she delved deeper, Amanda's heart began to race. Hidden in a folder with an innocuous name were dozens of disturbing images and videos. Amanda's hands flew to her mouth, stifling a cry of horror. The content she discovered was beyond anything she could have imagined. Graphic images of violence, animal cruelty, and what appeared to be real crime scenes. Her mind struggled to process how her sweet and sensitive boy could be connected to such horrifying material. As she scrolled through the files, each one more disturbing than the last, Amanda's horror turned to nausea. She stumbled to the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before she vomited. Clutching the cold porcelain, she tried to comprehend what she had seen. How long had Zach been viewing this material? What effect was it having on him? And, most terrifyingly, had he moved from viewing to acting out these violent fantasies? With trembling hands, Amanda splashed cold water on her face and looked at her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at her seemed like a stranger, pale, with wide eyes filled with fear etched into every line of her face. She knew she had to act to protect her son and help him, but the thought of confronting the reality of what she had discovered paralyzed her. As Amanda grappled with what she had found, life in Austin continued its peaceful rhythm. Neighbors walked their dogs, runners jogged along the tree-lined streets, and children played in nearby Robbinswood Park, blissfully unaware of the darkness that had gripped their community. Amanda spent the rest of the day in a haze of fear and indecision. She considered calling Mike but couldn't bring herself to voice her discovery over the phone. She thought about contacting Zach's school counselor but feared overreacting. As the hours ticked by, her anxiety grew, fueled by the worst-case scenarios playing out in her mind. When Zach returned home from school, Amanda struggled to maintain a facade of normality. She watched him closely, searching for signs of the boy she thought she knew. Zach, for his part, seemed oblivious to his mother's scrutiny, retreating to his room with barely a word. That evening, as the family sat down for dinner, the tension was palpable. Mike, sensing the awkwardness between his wife and son, tried to lighten the mood with jokes and stories from his day, but his efforts fell flat against Amanda's distracted responses and Zach's sullen silence. After dinner, when Zach disappeared into his room again, Amanda finally confided in Mike in hushed tones. She recounted her discovery, her voice quavering as she described the disturbing content she had found. Mike listened in stunned silence, his face growing paler with each word. Together, they decided to confront Zach the next day. They would approach him with love and care, offering support and professional help. Neither of them slept that night, each lost in their thoughts and fears for their son's future. The next morning, Saturday, June 17th, dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the dark cloud hanging over the Harrison household. Amanda and Mike, with red-rimmed eyes from a sleepless night, prepared for the difficult conversation ahead. But as the morning wore on, Zach did not emerge from his room, and knocks on his door went unanswered. A growing sense of panic gripped Amanda as she used a spare key to open Zach's door. The room was empty, the window open, and a note lay on the neatly made bed. With trembling hands, Amanda unfolded the paper and read the words that would change their lives forever. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Don't try to find me." Panic surged through Amanda and Mike as they desperately searched the house and yard, calling Zach's name. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, joined the search, calling through nearby Kelsey Creek Park and surrounding streets. As the hours passed with no sign of Zach, the Harrisons were forced to contact the Austin police. Detective Laura Reyes, an experienced investigator from the Missing Persons Unit, arrived at their home. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos of the search. Detective Reyes listened intently as Amanda and Mike recounted the events of the past 2 days, including Amanda's disturbing discovery on Zach's phone. The detective's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of concern as she absorbed the information. As night fell, the search for Zach intensified. Police scoured the neighborhood while volunteers distributed flyers with Zach's photo throughout Austin and neighboring cities. Local news stations picked up the case, broadcasting Zach's image and details of his disappearance across the Seattle metropolitan area. Days turned into weeks, and there was still no sign of Zach. The Harrison home became a hub of activity with police coming and going, friends and neighbors bringing food and offering support, and reporters camping on the street in hopes of any updates on the case. Amanda and Mike lived in a blur of police interviews, searches, and sleepless nights. The strain began to take its toll. Amanda lost weight, her once vibrant personality dimmed by worry and lack of sleep. Mike, trying to be strong for his wife, withdrew into himself, spending hours studying maps and online forums in search of any clue that might lead them to Zach. As the investigation continued, Detective Reyes and her team delved deeper into Zach's life. They interviewed his teachers, classmates, and parents of his friends. A clearer picture began to emerge of a boy who, despite his outward success, had been struggling internally for some time. Zach's teachers reported a recent decline in his grades and participation in class. Some of his classmates mentioned that he had become more isolated, often sitting alone at lunch and declining invitations to social events. One friend, speaking confidentially with the police, revealed that Zach had recently confided in him about his dark thoughts but swore to keep it a secret. The digital forensics team assigned to the case confirmed Amanda's worst fears. The disturbing content on Zach's phone was extensive, dating back several months. They also discovered evidence of Zach's involvement in online forums dedicated to extreme and violent content. The findings were chilling. Not only was Zach consuming this material, but he was also actively engaging with others who shared these interests. As the summer wore on, the case of the missing boy from Austin gained national attention. True crime podcasts dissected every detail of Zach's disappearance. Online detectives scoured social media for clues, and amateur sleuths offered their theories on what might have happened to the 14-year-old boy. The strain on the Harrison family was immense. The once unbreakable bond between Amanda and Mike began to show cracks under the pressure. They often argued, each blaming themselves and sometimes each other for not noticing Zach's struggle sooner. Friends and family rallied around them, but the couple felt increasingly isolated in their grief. Then, on a hot summer day, nearly 2 months after Zach's disappearance, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A tourist in the remote areas of the Cascade Mountains, about an hour's drive east of Austin, stumbled upon an abandoned campsite amidst a litter of wrappers and empty water bottles. He found a backpack containing Zach's school ID. The discovery reignited the search efforts. Police and volunteer search and rescue teams combed the dense forest, battling difficult terrain and summer heat. Helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights piercing the canopy in search of any sign of the missing boy. On the third day of renewed searches, when hope was beginning to fade, a search dog picked up a scent. Following the dog, rescuers ventured deeper into the forest, eventually stumbling upon a small clearing. What they found there would haunt them for years to come. The clearing contained the remains of an improvised shelter, a tarpaulin stretched between trees, a long cold campfire, and scattered personal belongings. And there, partially hidden under a pile of leaves and forest debris, lay a body. The news hit Amanda and Mike like a physical blow. They clung to each other, sobbing, as Detective Reyes gently informed them that presumed remains of Zach had been found. The detective's voice, usually so composed, trembled as she promised to keep them informed throughout the identification process. The following days passed in a haze of grief and disbelief for the Harrisons. The community of Austin, which had supported them during the search, now enveloped them in a blanket of support and shared sorrow. Candlelight vigils were held, memorials were set up outside Zach's school, and a fund was established in his name to support youth mental health programs. As the shock of Zach's death began to subside, questions arose. How could a 14-year-old boy survive in the wilderness for so long? What drove him to such desperate measures? And, most importantly, was there more to his death than met the eye? The autopsy results, when they came, only deepened the mystery. Although exposure and exhaustion contributed to Zach's death, the medical examiner found evidence of injuries inconsistent with surviving in the woods alone. Bruises in various stages of healing indicated repeated trauma over time. Most disturbingly, there were signs of defensive wounds on Zach's arms and hands. These findings shifted the focus of the investigation. What had begun as a missing person case was now a potential homicide. Detective Reyes and her team returned to the beginning, re-examining every piece of evidence with fresh eyes. They delved deeper into the online forums Zach had frequented, uncovering a network of individuals who shared his fascination with violence and blood. Through painstaking digital forensic work, they identified several users who had been in constant contact with Zach in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. One username stood out: Nemesis1694. This user had exchanged hundreds of messages with Zach, their conversations growing increasingly intense and personal in the days before Zach went missing. Nemesis1694 had proposed meeting in person, describing a location that matched where Zach's body was found. As the police worked to unmask the identity of Nemesis1694, Amanda and Mike struggled to reconcile the son they thought they knew with the troubled boy revealed by the investigation. They pored over old photos and videos, searching for signs they might have missed, clues that could have warned them of Zach's inner turmoil. In their grief, they also faced the judgment of others. Although many in the community offered support, there were whispers and accusatory glances. How could they not have known? How could they have allowed their son to fall into such a dark place? The weight of guilt and public scrutiny threatened to crush them. Weeks passed as the investigation continued. Then, on a cool autumn morning, Detective Reyes arrived at the Harrison home with news that shattered their world once again. They had identified Nemesis 1694, and it was someone Zach and consequently Amanda and Mike knew well. John Miller, a 47-year-old colleague of Mike's and family friend, was taken into custody. John, a quiet and unassuming man who often joined the Harrisons for backyard barbecues and holiday gatherings, was unmasked as the person behind Nemesis 1694. The volume of evidence linking him to Zach's murder was staggering. Hidden cameras, explicit materials involving minors, and, most damningly, items belonging to Zach were found carefully hidden. It became clear that John had not only been grooming Zach but possibly other young victims as well. The revelation rocked the community. How could such a monster have lived among them undetected for so long? Parents held their children closer, eyeing their neighbors with suspicion. The trust that once defined their quiet suburb was shattered. For Amanda and Mike, the news brought a storm of emotions. Relief that they finally knew the truth, horror at what Zach must have endured, grief for their lost son, and rage at the man who had betrayed their trust so completely. The knowledge that they had unwittingly invited their son's killer into their home tormented them. As the case against John Miller was built, more details about Zach's final days emerged. It seemed that John had convinced Zach to run away, promising adventure and understanding. Instead, he subjected the boy to unimaginable abuse before ultimately taking his life. The trial, when it came, was a media sensation. News vans clogged the streets of Austin. Reporters jostled for a spot in front of the King County Courthouse. Inside, Amanda and Mike sat stoically as prosecutors laid out the horrifying details of Zach's ordeal. John Miller, for his part, showed no remorse. He sat impassively throughout the proceedings, his expression never changing. Even as victim impact statements were read and evidence of his crimes was presented. After weeks of testimony, the jury took less than a day to deliver their verdict. John Miller was found guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, child abuse, and possession of child pornography. The judge, her voice trembling with barely contained rage, sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For many in Austin, the conclusion of the trial brought a sense of closure. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But for Amanda and Mike Harrison, the end of the legal proceedings marked the beginning of a long and painful healing process. In the months and years that followed, they worked to rebuild their lives, honoring Zach's memory. They founded the Zach Harrison Foundation, dedicated to educating parents and children about online safety and the warning signs of grooming and abuse. Amanda became a vocal advocate for stricter internet regulations and harsher penalties for crimes against children. The Harrison home, once a symbol of suburban perfection, stood empty for a long time. Amanda and Mike could not live there, surrounded by memories of Zach and the knowledge of what had happened under their roof. Eventually, they sold the house and moved to another part of Austin, seeking a fresh start while remaining close to the community that had supported them in their darkest days. The quiet suburb of Austin would never be the same. The case served as a cautionary tale, a tragic reminder of the hidden dangers lurking in the digital world. Podcasts about real crimes and documentaries continued to dissect the case, each retelling serving as a warning for parents and children. The relationship between Amanda and Mike, tested to its limits by tragedy, ultimately survived through grief counseling and their shared dedication to the Zach Harrison Foundation. They never had more children, feeling that no one could replace Zach. They poured their love and energy into helping other families protect their children. On what would have been Zach's 18th birthday, 6 years after his death, the community of Austin gathered for the opening of the Zach Harrison Memorial Park. The park, built on the site of the old Harrison home, included a modern playground, a computer lab with controlled internet access for children, and a memorial wall for victims of online predators. As Amanda cut the ribbon to officially open the park, she looked out at the gathered crowd. She saw faces marked by sadness but also by determination. Parents held their children close, many wearing t-shirts with Zach's smiling face and the words, "Be safe online," printed beneath. In her speech, Amanda spoke about the dangers children face in the digital age, as well as hope. She urged parents to be vigilant, to talk openly with their children about online safety, and never to take a moment with their loved ones for granted. Her voice quavered as she concluded, "Zach's life was tragically cut short, but through this park and our ongoing efforts, his legacy will live on. Let's honor him by ensuring that no other child becomes a victim of the dangers he faced." The impact of Zach's case extended far beyond Austin. Legislators at both the state and federal levels cited the tragedy as an example when they pushed for stricter regulations for internet platforms and harsher penalties for online predators. Zach's law, passed 2 years after his death, required comprehensive online safety education in schools and increased funding for law enforcement agencies combating online crimes against children. Detective Laura Reyes, deeply affected by the case, became a leading expert on crimes against children in the digital age. She traveled the country, speaking at conferences and training other law enforcement agencies on the latest techniques for tracking online predators. In her presentations, she often used Zach's case as a stark example of how quickly and quietly a child can be groomed and become a victim. John Miller, Zach's killer, found no peace in prison, despised by his fellow inmates for the nature of his crimes. He lived in constant fear and isolation. 5 years into his life sentence, he was found dead in his cell, presumably by suicide. The news evoked complex emotions in Amanda and Mike. Relief that he would never harm another child, but also disappointment that he had escaped a lifetime of punishment for his crime. As technology continued to evolve, new challenges emerged in ensuring the safety of children online. The Zach Harrison Foundation worked tirelessly to stay ahead of these changes, developing new educational programs and collaborating with tech companies to create safer online environments for children. Through the Foundation's efforts, millions of families across the country adopted the tools and practices promoted by Amanda and Mike. 10 years after Zach's death, Amanda published a book titled Beneath the Surface, A Mother's Fight for Online Safety. The memoir, candid and honest, became a bestseller. It offered not only a deeply personal account of the Harrison family's tragedy, but also practical advice for parents now navigating the digital landscape with their children. The book catapulted Amanda into the national spotlight. She appeared on talk shows, gave TED Talks, and was invited to testify before Congress on internet safety. Through all this, she remained focused on her mission to prevent other families from experiencing the pain that shattered her world. Mike, more comfortable out of the public eye, focused on the behind-the-scenes work of the foundation. He worked with software developers to create monitoring tools that parents could use to track their children's online activity without invading their privacy. These tools, offered for free through the Zach Harrison Foundation, were adopted by millions of families across the country. As the years passed, the raw pain of losing Zach gradually transformed into a bittersweet longing for Amanda and Mike. They found joy in the lives they helped protect through their work, but there was always an empty space in the shape of Zach that nothing could fill. On the 15th anniversary of Zach's disappearance, the Harrisons organized a national day of action for online safety. Schools across the country held assemblies, parents attended seminars, and social media platforms promoted safety features and resources. The day culminated in a candlelight vigil at the Zach Harrison Memorial Park, attended by thousands of Austin residents and supporters from across the country. As Amanda and Mike stood hand in hand, looking out at the sea of flickering candles before them, they felt a deep sense of both sorrow and purpose. The world had changed radically in the years since they lost Zach, in many ways for the better thanks to the awareness raised by his case. But the struggle to protect children in the ever-evolving digital landscape was far from over. Amanda squeezed Mike's hand, drawing strength from his presence, as she had countless times over the years. Together, they had weathered the storm of unimaginable loss and emerged as beacons of hope and change. As the final notes of a song dedicated to Zach faded into the night, Amanda whispered a promise to her lost son, a promise to continue their work, to fight for the safety of all children until her last breath. Zach Harrison's legacy, a bright and curious boy whose life was tragically cut short, lived on in the countless lives touched by his case in Austin and beyond. Parents held their children a little tighter, asked more questions about their online activity, and worked to create a safer digital world. And though the pain of loss never fully faded for Amanda and Mike, they found solace in knowing that Zach's death had inspired a movement that would protect generations of children in the future. As the crowd dispersed and the candles were extinguished, Amanda and Mike slowly walked through the park named for their son. They paused at the memorial wall, their fingers tracing the engraved words, "In memory of Zach Harrison and all children lost to online dangers. May their stories inspire us to create a safer world for all." With heavy hearts but unwavering resolve, they turned toward home, ready to face whatever challenges the next morning might bring, in their ongoing mission to honor Zach's memory and protect the innocent. Thank you for joining us on this emotional and chilling journey into the tragic case of Amanda, Mike, and their beloved son Zach. At this Chanel's, we strive to uncover the raw truths behind the headlines, delving into the darkest corners of human behavior. Today's episode, mother discovers her 14-year-old son's horrifying secret leading to tragic murder, is a grim reminder of how quickly our lives can be upended by the unimaginable. We want to express our deepest gratitude to each of you for taking the time to watch this video, engage with the content, and share your thoughts and feelings. Your support and participation are what drive us to continue exploring these complex and often heartbreaking cases. We understand that stories like Zach's can be extremely difficult to listen to, but it is through awareness and understanding that we can hope to prevent such tragedies in the future. When we reflect on this case, it's important to remember that behind every real crime story are real people, families torn apart, and lives changed forever. The pain and loss experienced by Amanda and Mike serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of vigilance in the face of growing threats, especially in the digital age. The internet, while a powerful tool for connection and learning, can also be a dangerous place, especially for our children. We hope that this episode not only shed light on Zach's tragic fate, but also sparked important conversations about online safety, mental health, and the warning signs that too often go unnoticed. We want to express our special thanks to those who have supported us throughout this series. Your comments, shares, and subscriptions make it possible for us to continue bringing these stories to light. We know that true crime can be a challenging genre to engage with, and we are deeply grateful for the thoughtful and compassionate community that has formed around this channel. It is your interest in understanding these complex cases that motivates us to dig deeper to uncover truths that might otherwise remain hidden. As we close today's episode, we want to remind everyone to take care of themselves and each other. The themes we cover are often heavy and can evoke strong emotions. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, need a break, or seek support. We encourage you to talk about these stories with friends, family, or professionals if you need to process what you've heard. Remember that through open dialogue and education, we can better protect ourselves and those we love. In the coming weeks, we have more cases lined up that we believe will intrigue and touch you. Our future episodes will continue to explore the depths of human behavior, examining not only the crimes but also the social and psychological factors that contribute to these tragic events. We hope that you will continue this journey with us as we delve into more stories that challenge our understanding of morality, justice, and humanity. Before we go, we would like to invite you to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. By subscribing, you'll ensure that you never miss an episode and join a community of like-minded individuals passionate about uncovering the truth. We also encourage you to share this episode with others. The more people who are aware of the hidden dangers in our communities, the better we can work together to prevent future tragedies. We also invite you to engage with us in the comments section. Share your thoughts on today's case, how it affected you, and what you believe we can learn from it. Your insights and discussions are invaluable to us and help create a space where we can all learn and grow together. As we close this chapter, we want to leave you with a sense of hope. Though the stories we tell are often dark and difficult, they also underscore the resilience of the human spirit in the face of the unimaginable. There is always potential for healing, justice, and positive change. We believe that by sharing these stories, we can contribute to creating a safer and more informed world. Thank you again for being part of the True Crime Cases community. We look forward to offering you more compelling content in the coming weeks. Until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, and we'll see you in the next episode.